Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is a good one, Dragos Chiriac of Men I Trust. I'm a huge Men I Trust fan. I remember the first time I heard Billy Toppy, and I thought, okay, this is amazing. I didn't need a second listen. It's one of those songs you hear, and you immediately know you're going to like it. And this is a great interview. The band doesn't do a lot of them. They're pretty private. And I had reached out to the band's management a couple of years ago to do the interview, and they said no. They politely declined, very friendly about it, just didn't have the time and don't do a lot of these things. And so I went on my way, and a couple of weeks ago, opened up my inbox, and there was an email from Dragos saying, hey, let's do this. So he had sent me some texts that he had been reading because he wanted to discuss them. So this is a deep interview, really we talked a lot about philosophy. You're going to hear us talk a lot about Goethe and Jung and Hegel and other writers like that. So this is not your typical interview. We go deep into philosophy in this, which I love, but that really is underpins a lot of his writing anyway, his songwriting. So it certainly is related. But that's what I liked about this so much is we really explored some different avenues than I normally discuss. But we did talk about the process and what he likes to do and how he likes to write and what he needs. And I did ask him how Billy Toppy got written, and it's a great story at the end. So check that out. But this is one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of the band, so this is exciting. Here is my interview with Dragos Chiriac of Men I Trust. Let's start with this, and that is you told me that you started out as studying philosophy, and then moves to musicology. So I'd love to know what got you were you always into the philosophy, and what made you move into musicology? And I guess what about that studying philosophy appealed to you when you started to study it?
Oh, good question. Well, like when I started like really young, I got like trained in classical piano, like in conservatory in Romania. Then I moved to Canada. Then I continued like private piano lessons. And then as I was a teenager in high school, I started making like hip hop instrumentals, electronic music, and I met Jesse, and both of us would like share those instrumentals. So music was kind of always like I guess in my background, but I I didn't know that I wanted to make music really. Then after high school, there's like this 2 years gap that we have here. It's not quite high school, not quite university. It's a school called Cégep, and it has some mandatory philosophy courses. They're like very broad. It's history of thought or like some general like logic rules and stuff like that. And those classes like really interested me. So after like those 2 years, I decided to enroll into philosophy. I did a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and while I was like finishing the bachelor's degree, I decided to release like an electronic music album, like as a solo project. I did that, and while I was doing it and like recording it and working on it, I realized that it wasn't loud, it wasn't large, it wasn't like sounding like professional and commercial. So then I decided I would like to learn like audio. So I did like a year of audio engineering at the university as well. It's like a certificate. And because I had like after the certificate, because I had the background in classical music, I did like the auditions and they let me into musicology. And in musicology, I pursued still like audio recording. I did a master's in that, and then I did a PhD, but I dropped out by the end while the band started like being more successful. I could like dedicate all my time to it and make a living out of it. So I stopped. I stopped my PhD. Plus, they wanted me to write a really long paper, and I felt that I could make my argument like in much more less pages than they were asking me to, but they were still insisting. And anyway, the thought of like rewriting, yeah, the thesis, that really depressed me. So yeah, I dropped out of school because of that. But I always loved no, I didn't always love philosophy. As a teenager, I was like super immature, extremely dumb. Didn't have like a lot of self-reflection. I don't know how that spark got ignited. I feel kind of lucky, but it really transformed how I thought. That philosophy bachelor's degree, and ever since, it's still like most of the books I still read a lot. It's mostly philosophy. Lately, I'm reading some psychology as well. But yeah, those are like the main two things that I still read. They're like always present in my life, and I reread a lot of the same stuff, like the Faust book that I told you about, the Faust books, because the Faust 1, Faust 2, I reread that many, many, many times. So there's some books that I always come back to. And I always rediscovered like another hidden sense, a hidden meaning, and I find that really exciting. Yeah,
Well, I was gonna ask that because the you sent me that short poem that you said you've been reading over and over. I think you said for, I think, like 15 years. Um,
yeah,
and I'm not that way at all. Now
yeah,
that's not the way. I'm very different. My first thought is when I finish something, I want to get another voice in my head. So the fact
yeah.
that you're reading the same text over and over, is it do you really find meaning a new meaning every time? I mean, have you always done that? I'm just always interested in people who read things over and over again. I'm not like that, but it doesn't mean that I'm right. But
So like some stuff I read and I don't know. It depends. It's very subjective. I guess for me, it's like an intuition. So sometimes the first time I read like Faust, I didn't understand anything, but I was like, I got the feeling or the intuition that there's like something really special here, and I need to go over it many more times in the future. Got that feeling with a couple of things. Right now, I'm reading uh, Carl Jung's autobiography, which is like Dream Memories and Interpretations. I think that's the title. I just finished it like today, and I'm like, yeah, I need to reread this. It will probably haunt me for like the next 10 years for sure. Some books have that effect on me. Yeah, they haunt me. And I couldn't put my finger on why. It's just like I have a feeling, really an intuition that there's really something there that needs to be extracted. And sometimes I guess it has to do with like a really foreign way of thinking that is like foreign for me at least. I'm like, I don't get it. And I want to get it because I feel this is worth it. Some stuff I don't feel that way. Probably some profound stuff that I skip over because maybe it's not the correct time in my life for me to realize that there's something special there. But when I guess when I'm lucky enough to realize that something is special, yeah, I reread it many, 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 many times. Yeah, over and over.
so the long form pieces you're reading, it sounds like because you may not understand it the first time you read it, but the
Yeah,
short poems that you continue to return to, that's different because those, you can read those in a minute or two. I mean, on a surface level. So
yeah,
with poems, is it because you do get it, but you want to see if there's other meanings? There's a difference, right? Reading one thing because you don't
yeah.
understand it the first time, and reading something because let me see if I can get another meaning from this. Um, do you do that as well? Is that more so with the short form pieces?
In even the short form pieces, I feel like sometimes I don't really get it, and I guess the way I think about like philosophy in general, like lots of philosophers or writers, whatever, kind of tend to bastardize them a bit because I guess I'm looking for like something absolute, so I kind of tend to like orient them towards like a same target, which is maybe again it's a bastardization because they're all like in a historical context. It's not like it couldn't be like really rigorous academic work, But like for instance, that short poem, like maybe 8 years later, I discovered Novalis and I discovered Hymns to the Night, and he has some ideas like the inner and outer world meet when like all your social fabric, your relationship, your love relationship, everything fails. That's when you're really confronted with the world, and that's where you get the most vision. And it's like an in between state, very, very uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. And then you have like defense mechanisms of psychology that kick in that prevent you to have that vision. You can victimize yourself, blame others, project, transfer. But if you're able like to kind of like step those aside and that imbalance, you can find like the equilibrium. And I'm like, yeah, reminds me of that short poem that I really love. And it is about that. It's like, I don't know if you know the story of Saint Denis Garneau, the author of that poem. He, I think it was the First World War or Second World War. Like, again, I'm not like a historian. So maybe if I make some mistakes, please, be, I guess, forgiving with me. Yeah, he wanted to go to the war. He couldn't. And everyone, like he knew his friends went to the war, so he thought he was kind of like a bit like a coward. He had like a heart condition, and he like decided to go on a big canoe trip to cure himself, like put himself like through that, I guess, strain. And we never found him. We found his canoe, and he probably died, doing that. And when he's like, going from one thing to another in that poem, I imagine him like skipping from a rock to another rock and like traversing a torrent. And that torrent, is super, super perilous. But it's also like a moment that, he finds equilibrium without like standing on a thing. You know, I guess there are many layers that kind of make sense when you also read Novalis, and Novalis brought me to that and understanding it in a different way. But there are like, yeah, you can read it from start to begin, get, I guess, the storyline. But the main story is kind of like, I guess it's like maybe the first step. It's like, I guess, reading history. It's kind of not that interesting reading that like that, like the succession of events and how things happen. Um, I guess that's the first step, but there are like many other yeah, layers underneath that make it so much more interesting. And for me, I guess they're like perhaps ideological, like in a philosophy way, or maybe psychological. They talk about human nature. They talk about us. Yeah, and I guess, yeah, every time I read someone new that says something differently, but kind of like aligns like towards that absolute I'm looking for, I'm rereading and rediscovering all those pieces kind of in a new context, I guess, with the new information of something new that I found. I guess in my understanding of humans, of intellect, and all that good stuff. So yeah, it brings a new light on it. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, this is much more deeper than I thought. I also show that poem to one of my friends. She's like a philosophy teacher too, and she showed me a lot of Hegel works this year, and really appreciated them on their new light. And she was like, "This is like kind of dialectics, you know?" And I was like, "Interesting." Yeah, she was like, "Yeah, you have like the two opposites, and you have the equilibrium in the between." I'm like, "Man, never thought of it that way too." But yeah, there's always there's always a way, even with that, kind of silly short poem on the surface, but it can go so much deeper. It depends on, like, I guess, the references. References are so important, quotations or all that stuff. It doesn't mean that Saint Denis Garneau read Hegel or Novalis, not at all, but I guess people are like kind of discovering the same stuff at the same time at different periods or on different countries, and they're talking a bit about the same thing, and you try to. That's the bastardization. You put them together, like, oh, this reminds me of this, or maybe, yeah, making links where maybe there aren't, still makes it, yeah, so interesting for me, if
And
that
also
makes
reading
sense.
s yeah, it does, but also reading things over. I'm sure if you read something now that you read 10 years ago, your life experience and it would inform how you interpret that text as well.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, other people's life experiences through what they wrote. Yeah,
You mentioned Carl Jung, you read his book. How are you deciding how often do you say to yourself, "I need to reach out of my comfort zone"? There are certain things you could read that maybe already that your worldview already agrees with, how often are
Yeah.
you, because I know I probably need to do that better too. When I read things, it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm going to read this. I know I'm going to like it," rather than
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to like this, but I need to step out of my comfort zone. So I guess that's a multi-part question. How often do you do that, and how do you decide what text to reach for next anyway?
Yeah, and this is such a good question, and I don't pretend I do that. I also seek stuff that I think in advance I will probably find some interest in them. Again, like this was a bit getting out of my comfort zone, reading that book on Carl Jung. But again, I found like lots of resonances with stuff that I also, know about. Like he read a bunch of philosophy. He's obsessed with Faust. So there you go. Obsessed with like dream logic. I am too. He's obsessed with mummies, bug bodies. I'm obsessed with that too. And but the way he thinks about things is not really foreign, but the way it's codified is kind of like I really want to read his red book next, where he does. I guess he reads lots of obscure alchemy and he tries to extract. He tries to extract like the old symbolic meaning of stuff that all stuff that we inherit. We're like bombarded with information. We know stuff without knowing it, or we're exposed to it. He
Well,
tries
he's
to like
famous
bring
for the
them to the
archetypes, right?
conscious.
The Jungian
Archetypes,
archetypes.
that's the word I was looking for. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he wants to work with the old archetypes and bring them to life. Yeah. And I'm reading this book and I'm fucking terrified. Honestly, it's so terrifying what he does. It's a quest that, yeah, you can really lose your ego doing that. It reminds me of like experiences with psychedelics, all that stuff, like going into hypnagogic states, hypnagogic, anyway, like in half dream, half sleep states, and yeah, he has like two voices that speak to him like since he's young. Then he has like a dead mentor that exists in his head. He has like his psyche is a woman that talks to him, and I'm like, how isn't this guy like going through full psychosis? And sometimes he kind of brushes over it. He's like, "Oh, I was afraid I could go into psychosis." I'm like, "Yeah, I bet." For me, it sounds terrifying. Like you can do some psychedelics, it's nice to experiment with it. Overdo it a bit, and you kind of realize that you really need an ego. You need that protection, like that connection to he calls the ego like the empirical man. Yeah, you need that connection to the real world, and the rabbit hole goes so deep, and it's almost like a animalistic world. I would imagine like proto-humans, kind of like being in a kind of dream state, and maybe sometimes they have like the spark that ignites from time to time, and they go into the self-conscious states, and then fall back down to like that animalistic state. And I'm sure we inherited lots of archetypes and symbols from that era. A part of like logical me is like I think this is like nonsense, total nonsense, and part of that intuition that I talked about is like, I think there's more to it. But I cannot explain why, like in logical terms.
I wanted to ask you about this because what you said reminded me of a study. I've not brought this up in a few months with songwriters, but the hypnagogic state.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the word. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, and
Yeah,
there was a study where they found and this all started with Salvador Dali. And so what he would do was, and there's a great picture of him in this science journal where he would sit in this uncomfortable chair with holding a skeleton key with his arm outstretched. And when he would start to fall asleep, he was in that haze where he wasn't asleep, wasn't awake. It was that space in between. What happened was his hand would open up, the key would drop, it would fall on the floor, he'd make a noise, it would wake him up, and he'd start to paint. And so a lot of writers I've read about, and not just writers, and they've replicated this in the lab with creatives who use that state. We're about to drift off to sleep, and that's a time of incredible productivity. So I'd just
yeah,
like to know if that ever happens with you. Have you ever noticed that when you're not asleep, you're not awake, you're in that space in between when ideas come to you?
yeah, a ton, a ton. Well, that first song I sent to you, like a cycle, I wrote it following an experience with doing stuff like that, states like that. Though I wasn't like really working with sleep. I guess it was kind of like a meditation state. I was trying to have like a view from above things and kind of see the world from above, which is like more an imagination scale, I'd say, maybe than dream. Though I'm sure they have some connection, between both of them. Um, but yeah, whenever like I'm about to fall asleep, usually like I fall asleep to like a podcast or some people talking on a video, and then I'm about to fall asleep, and then I wake up just to close my phone, and then I fall kind of like more awake because I had to move to close the phone, and then I start hearing like symphonies, ideas from music, texts, yeah, movies, all that creative stuff that streams, and like some of them are really great. And I'm like, I cannot like, I'm not, I guess, good enough to like transcribe them into music and make it like material. And also, like, there's a memory thing, you kind of lose all of it. But yeah, I'm usually just a spectator, and it's really fun. I love that. Just hearing that stuff, it's so cool. I love it. I'm entertained with that. I love that a lot. Yeah,
But
but not enough
you
to
don't
make use of it. Never. Yeah,
yeah, so you don't really when that happens, you typically don't have the I guess, the focus to say, "Oh, I need to start to write now." I I'm
I don't
getting
have
flooded.
the music skill to do that for sure. Like I know how to read sheet music, but I'll never write in sheet music. Like I write on Ableton, and I'm not like I'm not a great musician, honestly. Like even like the parts I play the keyboard, yeah, write them. Then I had to learn them and learn very very slowly at a very very hard pace. Takes me a lot of time, and I do like mostly like support work in the band live. Like I support the band with like the harmony and stuff like that. But even that is very strenuous for me compared like to my bandmates. Emma has it really naturally. Jesse, he's the best musician I know. Alexei and Eric are like trained musicians at school. They learn like a set in one day. Like for me, it's like 2 months work, and it's really very simple stuff. So yeah, I can hear it, but I cannot materialize it just because I lack the skill. And there's always like I guess an unsymmetrical relationship between what you can appreciate and what you can do. For me, it's always been like insane in music. Yeah, stuff I can appreciate, I cannot comprehend. But I still am kind of lucky to be able to appreciate it. And then it's kind of a curse and a blessing because the curse is like it points back your own mediocrity at yourself, being able to appreciate it. But at the same time, thank God you're able to appreciate the nice stuff. Lest you'd be like a satisfied swan, it's nice to appreciate, I guess, the stuff that is beyond your comprehension. But yes, music like that beyond my comprehension would stream in my head, and but I cannot. Yeah, I cannot write that. I don't have the skills to do that. Maybe one day. I don't know. It's always been like a big handicap. Music for me comes very, very slowly. I'm not good with body coordination. Not that good with rhythm. Takes me a lot of work just like to not rush the songs, like playing ahead of time. I tend to do that. It's just basic stuff, yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to just wake up and take the sheet music and write all that stuff. Yeah, no, not at all.
So following that a little bit, I interviewed, Lucinda Williams a few months ago, and she said that she could write about dark things, but she had to be in a content place emotionally to write about dark things. She can never write about dark things while she was in a dark place. And you and I talked about Paris earlier, and Hemingway said that he could never write about Paris when he was in Paris. He always needed distance to be able to write about things. So I'd love to get your take on if you need distance to be able to write about something, or is immediacy more important?
No, distance is everything, but the right distance. It's even like for like consciousness. I talked about like the spark and people going out of in like self awareness and stuff. I always wondered, how that spark works. Um, Hegel says that you need another consciousness to be able to kind of like differentiate your own against yours, but also it cannot be like really like your mom or your brother. It must be like different enough, it's like a spark plug. Uh, if like the gap is too big, there's no spark. If it's like
Hmm.
big enough, there's a spark. Too close, it's a short circuit. There's no spark. Yeah, you need like the right amount of distance, for sure. Like I think to kind of like I guess analyze or comprehend anything, really, you just need the right distance. Yeah, for sure.
But there has to be times when you've gotten the urge to write, like something happens and you think, I need to write now. This can't wait. Does that happen to you often?
No, not really. Like the way, like, if I have to write a song, usually, I have to sit down and really put my mind to it, and then be like, now I'm writing. Um, write down like short stories or anecdotes or stuff that happens to me, a conversation I have with people that bug me, that I want to like revisit. Those stuff I write down. And they're kind of like, I guess, a well of like future ideas or stuff that I can use. Could be like a scene from a movie or a dialogue from a movie or, some lyrics. I have no idea what I'll do with them, but I have a bunch of them. Then I write them, before they fade in my memory. But I don't really get the urge to write. Most of the times I feel like I don't have much to say. So it has to be like a designated time where I'm like, now I'm doing this. I'm like taking like my afternoon or like this morning to do this. And I have to be seated. And then I think, I stare at like a white page and nothing really comes for a while. And then I start writing and I write maybe two, three, four paragraphs, a page or two, whatever. And then I will like format it into the correct format for a song. Yeah. But that's how it usually happens. Like I never like I'm in a mood that I'm like I feel like I have something to say. I always feel the opposite. Really, I'm like I don't know. What do I have to tell? I'm like I'm happy with my dog at my house. What should I write about? I have no idea. Yeah,
I've had this conversation and I've never come up with an answer. But why is it that when we're in a good place, we're euphoric, we're happy, our urge is never, oh, let me write about this. We only want to write when we're in melancholic spaces. No one ever says, I'm in the best mood. I'm going to write. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm always trying to explore why is it that we don't feel the need to write those things down when we're in a good space. It's only when we're in a negative space, in an unhappy space, is when people feel the urge to create. And that's kind of what you're saying to me a little bit. I think is, hey, I'm
of
happy,
course,
but I
of
don't
course.
know why is it? Why do you think as humans that we don't? Why don't we feel that urge to create, to write when we're in a good place?
Well, I think like nobody has the answer to that. Also Goethe as well. Yeah, let me bring a passage of Goethe. I love that in Faust. What I love a lot is that Goethe takes Mephistopheles seriously, evil seriously, and the evil has like a place in the whole creation. So the Lord says to Mephistopheles, "For you and your kind, I feel no hate. Of all the spirits of denial and ill, such rogues are you as I can tolerate. For man's activity can slacken all too fast. He falls too soon into a slothful ease. The devil's a companion who will tease and spur him on and work creatively at last." Yeah, I think like, well, yeah, whenever like you're in a terrible mood, when you lost something, yeah, you really get vision. If you can like, again, it really sucks. It sucks to be like, I guess, the spectator of your own like sadness. But I really think it is like an opportunity for vision. And those, it's nice to write about like a revelation, I guess, or something, that you discovered, like for me at least. Yeah. So I would definitely see why, it's more inspiring for sure. And then, I guess with if you're a good writer or not, there's some like levels of quality you can achieve with that. It can be like super lame for sure, how it's done. Um, but I think, yeah, there's a opportunity there, but it sucks that the opportunity is at your own expense, really. It really sucks. Like, I wouldn't, like, create those situations upon myself just to be more creative, for sure, because, yeah, it can be quite catastrophic.
And now you mentioned the blank page and staring at a blank page, and
Yeah.
that can be very daunting. And when I was a professor and I was teaching writing courses, I would tell my students, writer's block happens not because we don't know what to say, but because we don't know where to begin. So I don't believe that when we stare at a page, there's nothing there. I think often that we struggle in the initial stages because we have too much to say, we don't know. And I would always tell my students, just start to write where you have the most to say, and that momentum keeps you going. And I interviewed the writer Anthony Doerr. He wrote a book called All the Light We Cannot See that won the Pulitzer Prize about 10 years ago. And I said, what do you think about writer's block? He goes, I don't believe in writer's block. He said, writer's block is a failure of courage. And that really stuck with me. The idea that don't be afraid to write the bad stuff. You know, I interviewed someone yesterday who said they write an hour of crap before they get to the good stuff. That can be difficult because you have to have a lot of discipline to know that the good stuff is coming, but to endure the bad stuff first. So, how often does that happen? And when you are staring at the blank page, do you have patience? Because again, I think with writer's block, there's a great story about Joseph Conrad, who he wrote a 10-page letter to his cousins complaining about writer's block, missing the irony that he just wrote a 10-page letter complaining about writer's block. So, do you believe in that?
That's good.
Yeah. Do you believe in that in the first place, or is that a myth to you?
Um, I don't know, I've been lucky enough not to have it, ever. It always comes, like, at a great pain or whatever, but I feel like, yeah, as you said, like, it will be bad for sure, and, like, so much of the work, of an artist in general is just creating your own stuff, which is, like, super normal. Like, yeah, we write some bad songs, and we don't release them, write some bad lyrics, don't use them. Yes, yeah, it's normal, and maybe, from that, you write some other good stuff, and maybe that you release, and same thing, I guess, with, like, I guess, starting to write no matter what, and, then maybe as you go, like, an hour later, maybe you start to get some good stuff. Yeah, I guess it's probably the same thing as, like, working out, like, physically. Uh, it's such a pain just to start and, just to keep, I guess, the motivation and the discipline to do it, like, every day. It's just starting is always the hardest part, but, once you're in, like, a couple of series, it kind of gets easier. Yeah, but starting is, like, yeah, the biggest hurdle for sure. Yeah. Mhm.
And you had mentioned to me earlier that your songwriting process has changed over the course of the
Yeah.
band. Um, why did that change? I mean, is it because you thought we need a change, or things weren't working? I mean, how and why has that process changed over time? Is it constant self-reflection where you think, uh, put another way, are you reassessing all the time things that are working, things that aren't working?
Yeah, over time you do for sure. So when we started the band, we used to like write the lyrics before, and then we would make like a vocal melody out of it, and it's a really a challenge. Musically speaking, like usually it will suffer a bit. There will be like some awkward words that are not like super nice to sing. There'll be like some even if you write like with some pacing and the text, and if you have rhymes or whatever, sometimes it will still like be a bit awkward when you force it into music. But at the same time, you that's where you get like the most meaning, I guess, because you write your text how you want it to be, and you have everything there. When you have like to format the text to lyrics, that's what we're doing now. To like melodies, there's some loss of meaning happening. You want to try and do it, lose as few meaning as possible, but you will lose some meaning for sure. Especially like you want to convey an idea. Unless you're like a great writer, extremely good writer, you can do it with very few words. If you're not too good, you need a couple of sentences, and that's where I am, I think. you need some space to write stuff and put it, and the more words you remove, because that's what the melody requires, the more meaning you lose, and yeah, the more it's harder I guess, to get at like the meaning of the text. But musically, I found that it really helps the songs. We would like make drafts, and Jesse or I would like hum la la las and stuff like that, and then it counts like the number of syllables. And I write like 8, 7, 6 on a paper. Then I have like my paragraph or two that I wrote, and how to format it, how to say it without losing meaning. I don't think it's like a either or thing. I think it's possible to really have both at the same time. I guess if you do it like very instinctively, and that's how it goes. For us, it's not really that way. Yeah, I know some songwriters, come up with melodies and lyrics both at once, and they're already like super complete, songs and stuff. And yeah, props for them. Yeah, it is hard, I think, yeah, to achieve that.
Okay, so you've got a song, you're very, very proud of the lyrics. The lyrics are exactly the way you want them to be, the meaning, but you've got a killer melody also, and they can't coexist. So
No,
which one gets sacrificed? Do you sacrifice the words to fit the melody? I mean, if they're both there and they're just fantastic,
yeah,
which one are you willing to say, okay, I'll sacrifice this to make the other one shine?
yeah, sacrifice the words.
You do.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
so I mean, that's got to be a challenge for you, I would think, because we've been the first 20 minutes you and I were talking about some really deep topics and philosophy and things that you're reading, and you're having the influence that the philosophers we've talked about, the influence that has on your lyrics. You're writing about pretty deep topics, so. I mean, is that frustrating for you to sacrifice that because I mean, it's already hard to take the things that you read and influence, I would imagine, and have to already shove them into a 3.5 minute song. That's got to be a challenge in itself, right?
And also make it original, your own. You don't never want to like copy paste someone's things. You can see like influences, never copy. Yeah, yeah. It's hard. Yeah, to make it your own. Yeah, yeah. If it influences you, you want to spin it in your way for sure. Yeah, it's already hard. Yeah, for sure. Uh, but like, it's also like a place of privilege, I guess, to be in. It's like say you do a photo shoot and you have like 60 amazing pictures, but you have to only submit 4. And so like first you like remove all the B ones, the A ones, and you just have maybe 16 A plus 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 ones. And you still have to choose 4. It's still such a great place to be in, like rejecting something awesome uh just because you have that luxury. I think the worst is like when you have neither, not a good melody and not some great lyrics. That's terrible. So no, it's still. I guess it's still kind of nice to be able to toss some nice words. Why not? Yeah.
Now, what about visual art? I mean, again, back to Hemingway. Hemingway famously said all writers should go to art galleries to get inspired. So how often does visual art, talked a lot about the written word, how often do visual arts inspire you as a songwriter?
A lot. Well, I do the pictures for the band, the music videos. Yeah, man. And I don't know. I feel like whenever you like an art, you kind of have to like them all. I don't know. For me, at least, that's how it goes. And yeah, I'm touched by all kinds of arts. I cry all the time, when I see something beautiful, or hear something beautiful, read something beautiful. You're just reminded that, like, in your own, like, humble way, you kind of still, like, I guess, able to take some of that shine because you're, like, part of, like, the whole human race and human being. Because you share that humanity with the people that do it, you're kind of, like, so proud that it makes you cry. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very inspired by visual art for sure. Though I won't pretend to be like learned on it for sure. Even with the books and the philosophy and stuff, I said like I read the same things, music as well. I listen to the same things, so I don't have like a really broad general culture. The things I like a lot. So I won't be the guy that will name you like his favorite painters and favorite eras and stuff like that. I'm not too well versed into that in movies as well. I like the Dutch masters and paintings, but yeah, don't remember any of their names. I'm bad with names. I'm bad with album names, song names. Yeah, I'm better with like remembering like storylines, threads. But yeah, very bad with proper names, which sucks because it's so nice to be able to like recall all the names. It gives you like so much credence and authority when you make an argument. But yeah, I have that, like that skill for sure. I wish I had it more readily available. Yeah.
I think it's interesting how a visual medium, you go to the Louvre or you go to an art gallery, you see a painting, and that medium inspires you to write words. It's one thing if a book inspires you to write words because that's easy. It's from words to words, but to take something
Yeah.
visual and I'd love to explore how that inspires us. Again, you're not watching a movie because movies still have words. That's easy, but you're really taking a really different type of medium and how that inspires you or anyone to create, to write a song. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, interesting, but I'd say like yes and no to your argument. I kind of still believe that we're like mostly like visual beings, like way more than auditive and I don't know, maybe language is kind of on par, but like again, like the saying that do not tell, show instead. I think great writing is showing stuff. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's always related to the visual, and even in audio, I thought actually it was kind of a problem when I was studying musicology, especially like in my field, the audio field. Always analogies with visual. Is the mix bright or is it dark? We talk about like dynamic range. Those are like stuff that we can relate so easily to visual stuff. But because it's an audio, it's like so subjective, and people are constantly saying like foolish stuff that aren't true and don't work because it's like psychoacoustic, whereas like in visual arts there's a bit more consensus on some stuff. Like, for instance, probably know the problem of the loudness war in music. I heard about it.
Yeah.
So like albums got louder, and with loudness, you get a bit more distortion because you have like regular sine waves that are pushed against like a digital ceiling, become square waves, and they have more harmonics, so you get distortions. Quieter mixes elements in the mix are pushed higher, so there's like less dynamic range. So the difference between the upfront elements to the background elements is like lessened. I like dynamic music. Would I like impose that to everyone else? Hell no. But that's like what people have been doing in audio, like when adapting like loudness normalization, Spotify, and all those streaming platforms. Everyone kind of did like a naturalist sophism, where like the idea was that if a mix sounds natural, therefore it is good. Which I don't know. Music should be fun, and people should do whatever they want. If you want to have an album that distorts and it is extremely loud, you should be able to do that. But instead, it's being played back at a lower volume, so the mix sounds poorer compared to the dynamic range mixes with dynamic range. Take that problem in audio, apply that to visual arts. So you have like movies like Sin City or 300. You have no dynamic range, so you have black blacks, white whites, and very few information in between. Would you see like a movie theater rebroadcasting them like with a different lamp or like against instead of a white screen, then it's a beige screen? So like the dynamics are increased, no. Or would you see like a museum with a red painting that is true red and like we put it on the bluish light, so it's like a bit the hue is less strong? No, because we kind of get it. It's visual. This is like our day-to-day language. It makes no fucking sense. But apply that to like another medium that is like more subjective. It's audio that uses the same terminology as like the visual arts, and you get a mess. You get like stupid things that are being done stupidly, and people are like, yeah, let's be against the loudness wars, because it's bad. And you start to think about it. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, at least. And I'm not sure that the same error could be made in visual arts. because again, we're just visual beings, and it's so much easier to reason with something that you have before your eyes. It's evident, you know. So then again, coming back to the subject, yeah, I definitely feel like visuals would influence any kind of art, really, because I don't know. That's how we interface with the world primarily, by far, uh, against probably all the other senses. That's how I kind of feel about it.
Other types we've discussed some pretty heavy hitters as far as writers. If you're, what other writers, maybe fiction writers who aren't, are there fiction writers who you tend to gravitate towards? Not necessarily philosophy texts, but just in general, or poets, other writers that you enjoy, or maybe genres that you enjoy.
Good question. I don't tend to read a lot of fiction, but you know, Faust is definitely kind of a fiction work, even though there's some
That's true.
philosophy background. Yeah, Goethe, I would say for sure. Incredible writer. I like also the poetry of Schiller, though with both authors, because it's in German, it's tricky. The translation does a lot. It's almost like another body of work and its own. The translators are able to kind of keep the cadence and the rhymes and of the trans of what they're translating are almost as good as like artists as the people that translate. It's an insane work. Otherwise, I still love a lot John Stuart Mill. I love Socrates and Plato for sure. I know you'd asked me for like non-philosophy work. Um, Let me look. Oh, what I have right here, the ones I love. Novalis, I mentioned already. Uh, I mentioned Saint Denis Garneau for sure that I really, really love. I like Dylan Thomas.
Yeah.
I like Seamus Heaney. I'm so bad with
Seamus Heaney, yeah.
remembering.
Yeah. You know, it's funny about Seamus Heaney. When he passed away, I remember telling someone he may be the last poet who will get a front page obituary on the New York Times. When he passed away, I thought, given how poetry is not the way it was 50, 60, 70 years ago, you know, I don't know many poets who, when they pass away now, are going to get an obituary on the front page of a major newspaper like he did. I mean, he was fantastic. Um, that's
Do
a,
you think like
I guess.
poetry is a dying genre or a
Oh,
dying
absolutely.
species?
Sadly, yeah, I think that it is. I mean, I wish I didn't have to say that, but the number of songwriters I interview who read poetry, you know, much less the general public, but poets aren't major figures now. I mean, think about, you mentioned people like Dylan Thomas. I mean, think about, you know, there was a point when poets were major cultural figures in society. And I mean, Robert, pick your writer. I mean, Walt Whitman, Robert
Yeah, I
Frost.
love
We can go
him.
back, and those days are
Bukowski.
long gone.
Yeah.
So
I always wondered too if like classical music would make a comeback at some point. I discussed about it with many friends as well. That question. I think it's like kind of like analogous to I guess your
yeah,
stance on like dying because yeah, people kind of see it as dead. But and like I was listening to a broadcast by Glenn Gould like from the 50s, and he was interviewing this guy that believes that classical music would come back, and if it comes back, and when it comes back, it would have like to enrich people's lives in a way that they also can understand it. I thought that was interesting, and I don't know. While like talking with my friends about this, we're like kind of like realizing it wasn't dead; it was still there. Maybe not like mainstream anymore. I don't have no idea, but people are constantly still writing classical music. But I don't know why. Like I also had that idea and accepted it that it was kind of dead. I don't know why we think that. I'm not sure there's evidence to that actually when you think about it. But except maybe like I guess recognition in the mainstream.
right. I think that's what
Yeah.
it is. I think
Mhm.
those figures were major cultural figures, and now they're not. I mean, they're famous and they're within their genre, but those people aren't famous outside of that the way they used to be. My favorite song by the band is Billy Toppy. I could listen to that for days, days on end. I've never ever gotten tired of it, and I've listened to it so many times. Please, for my own sake, tell me the genesis behind how that song, how you wrote that song, how it was created. I would love to know because it's just an amazing song.
So like musically, we wrote so many chill songs. It's insane. And then like started touring towards quite a lot, and kind of realized at some point, I guess, that our set list was maybe putting people to sleep. Not, I'm exaggerating a bit, but because people like listen to the music, maybe close their eyes and attentively, but are like, I don't know, maybe our set list is like too slow. And we had like an endeavor for a couple of years to have some more fast paced stuff, so we could like also you know um have a live show that was like a bit more exciting. Because, like, yeah, we did all those that studio music, studio albums, then, like, slowly started touring it, and, it was always, like, studio first, then touring after, and I don't know, like, with time, I guess touring kind of informed as well, like, how, we wrote music, and, so the idea was, yeah, having something that was, like, really fast-paced, kind of in your face. It's still, like, soft. Again, it's super dynamic too. This is why I'm training on, like, dynamic music. Touring has become like so important in our lives. We spend more time touring than songwriting for sure nowadays. So yeah, we thought about the set list and wanted to have like something more exciting in the set for ourselves, but also like for the fans. Have like more dynamic movements in the set, some ups and downs, and work play with the pacing that way. So yeah, it started. We wanted to have a fast paced song. Really like brutish drum machine beats, like the 707 to that to that. Yeah, that's kind of punk, new wave, I guess in a way too, and that drives the beat, forward. Yeah, Jesse's amazing with bass lines, guitar lines. He did all that on Billy Toppy. Great song. I like it a lot too. Yeah.
So is it all three of you together in a room, or who came up with the original riff to that, the melody?
So we never write the three together in a room. I don't think it's that productive, like jamming. We always like start with a draft. Someone submits it. That one is Jesse. Yeah, he did it. He did the draft. He sent it to us, and yeah, I instantly loved it. And I don't know, maybe I added the bridge. Sometimes I do that on drafts. And Emma recorded the vocals, wrote the lyrics on tour in the car on the way to Vegas. Yeah,
That reminds
sorry,
me
go
though,
ahead.
yeah, my follow-up to that is, how important is the role of movement? Do you get inspired while you are get a song it is while you're in a car, walking, biking? How important is movement? Do you get a lot of ideas when you're in motion?
I prefer to do it at home. Honestly, yeah, I find it harder to write on tour. I think Jesse and Emma as well. I think the only song we wrote on tour, well, we wrote the lyrics for that song on tour, and Jesse wrote Northern Commander as well on tour. I think those are the two only songs I could think of that we've done that. Usually we do it at home. It's better. Yeah, it's nice to be seated at a table and with your like real computer and yeah, think of stuff. Yeah.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out.